"You can't afford our wedding reception," my sister-in-law sneered. "Just stay away. We don't need any embarrassment." I simply smiled and said okay. Later that evening, the venue manager called her. "Ms. Rodriguez has cancelled your booking. She actually owns this property." Their perfect celebration was destroyed. The call came at 2:45 p.m. on a Thursday afternoon while I was reviewing blueprints for the new Rodriguez Luxury Resorts expansion in Charleston. My phone buzzed with my brother's number, but when I answered, it was his fiancée Isabella's voice that greeted me. "Josephine. So glad I caught you." Her tone was saccharine sweet, the fake enthusiasm she always used when she wanted something from me. "I'm calling about our wedding reception this Saturday." I leaned back in my leather executive chair, looking out at the Dallas skyline from my corner office on the 52nd floor. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see the Trinity River winding through the city. A view that had cost me $15,000 a month in rent when I'd first started Rodriguez Hospitality Enterprises 9 years ago. Now I owned the entire tower. "What about it, Isabella?" "Well, there's been a small change of plans. We've decided to make it a more exclusive affair. You understand." I set down my Mont Blanc pen and gave her my full attention. Isabella Whitmore had been engaged to my brother Carlos for 8 months, and in that time, she'd made it abundantly clear that she considered me an embarrassment to the family she was marrying into. "I'm not sure I do understand." Isabella's laugh was sharp and condescending. "Josephine, sweetie, let's be honest here. This is going to be a very high-end event at the Magnolia Grande Country Club. We're talking about a $75,000 reception with all of Dallas's elite. Carlos's law firm partners will be there. My father's business associates, people from the country club board." I waited for her to continue, though I could already see where this was heading. "Look, you're too poor for our wedding reception. I mean, look at yourself. You drive that old Prius. You live in some cramped apartment. You work at that little charity nobody's ever heard of. We just can't have you there making everyone uncomfortable." I glanced at the framed photo on my mahogany desk from last month's ribbon-cutting ceremony for our new resort in Savannah. Me holding oversized scissors, standing next to the governor and 4 major hospitality industry CEOs. The headline read, "Rodriguez Hospitality Enterprises announces $3.2 billion Southeast expansion." "Isabella, I think you might be misunderstanding my situation. Stay home, Josephine. We don't want any embarrassment at our special day. This reception is about celebrating success and achievement, not whatever it is you do at that homeless shelter place." I looked around my executive office, at the industry awards lining the mahogany-paneled walls, the Forbes and Fortune magazines with my photo on the covers, the architectural models of the 15 luxury resorts I'd built across 4 states. "I see. I knew you'd understand. You've always been so reasonable about knowing your place in the family. Anyway, I have to run. The florists are expecting my call and there are 1,000 details to coordinate when you're throwing the social event of the season." But I wasn't done with this conversation yet. "Isabella, can I ask where you're having this reception?" "The Magnolia Grande Country Club, of course. Carlos pulled strings to get us the Crystal Ballroom. Apparently, there was a waiting list, but his law firm has connections. It's going to be absolutely perfect." I smiled, looking at the Magnolia Grande Country Club ownership certificate hanging on my wall. The same certificate I'd received 4 years ago when I'd purchased the club through Rodriguez Hospitality Acquisitions as part of our luxury venue expansion. "The Crystal Ballroom is beautiful," I said. "Great choice." "Thank you. I knew someone with taste would appreciate it. Anyway, I should let you go. I'm sure you have whatever it is you do to get back to." "Actually, Isabella, I do have some business to handle. Enjoy your reception." "Thanks. Bye, Josephine." The line went dead. I sat staring at my phone for a moment, then burst out laughing. Isabella had just uninvited me from a wedding reception being held at the country club I owned, because she thought I was too poor to attend. My assistant, Patricia, knocked on the door. "Ms. Rodriguez, your 3 o'clock appointment is here." "Cancel it," I said, still smiling. "And get me the general manager of Magnolia Grande Country Club on the line right away." "Anything else?" "Yes. Pull the Whitmore Rodriguez wedding reception reservation for this Saturday. I want to review all the details personally." 25 minutes later, I was speaking with Thomas Bennett, the GM of Magnolia Grande Country Club. Ms. Rodriguez, what a pleasure to hear from you. How can I assist you today? Thomas, I understand there's a wedding reception booked for this Saturday evening. The Whitmore Rodriguez reception. Yes, let me pull that up. Here it is, Isabella Whitmore and Carlos Rodriguez, Crystal Ballroom, Saturday evening. They've booked our platinum package, cocktail reception, 7-course dinner, premium bar service, live string quartet. It's actually one of our most elaborate events this month. I want to cancel it. There was a pause. Cancel it, Ms. Rodriguez? May I ask why? Is there an issue with our service or facilities? The issue is that the bride specifically uninvited the club owner from attending because she believes I'm too poor to be seen at such an upscale event. Another pause, longer this time. I see. That's highly irregular. Should I call Ms. Whitmore to discuss the cancellation? Yes. Tell her exactly what I just told you, that the event is being cancelled because she uninvited the owner of the facility. Understood, Ms. Rodriguez. What about their deposit? I thought about it. The deposit was probably $25,000, a significant amount for most people, but barely a line item in Rodriguez Hospitality's quarterly revenue. Keep it. Consider it an education fee. The confrontation was about to begin. At 7:23 p.m., my phone rang. Carlos's number this time, but I could hear Isabella shrieking in the background before he even spoke. Josephine, what the hell is going on? The country club just called and cancelled our wedding reception. They said the owner requested it because Isabella uninvited someone. This doesn't make any sense. It makes perfect sense, Carlos. Isabella called me today to uninvite me from your wedding reception because I'm too poor to be seen at such an upscale event. That's impossible. You don't own Magnolia Grande Country Club. Actually, I do. Rodriguez Hospitality Acquisitions purchased it 4 years ago as part of our luxury venue portfolio. Silence. Complete, total silence. What? You own Magnolia Grande Country Club? I own Magnolia Grande Country Club along with 23 other luxury venues across Texas, Georgia, and the Carolinas. I also own 15 resort properties, 6 urban hotels, and a hospitality management company that generates approximately $1.2 billion in annual revenue. More silence. I could hear Isabella demanding to know what was happening. But Josephine, you work at a non-profit. You drive a Prius. You live in that small apartment downtown. I serve on the board of 4 non-profits because I believe in giving back to the community. I drive a Prius because it's environmentally responsible and reliable. And I live in a 4,200 square foot penthouse in Uptown that I bought for $6.8 million. This is insane. You're telling me my sister is a multimillionaire and I never knew about it. Carlos, when's the last time you asked me about my work? When's the last time anyone in the family showed interest in what I do for a living? He was quiet for a moment. I don't know. I'll answer for you, never. You all assumed that because I dress casually and drive a modest car, I must be struggling financially. Nobody ever bothered to ask about my actual life. Isabella's voice came through clearly now, shrill and panicked. This is a joke, right? Some kind of mistake. Josephine can't possibly own the country club. Isabella, I said calmly, would you like me to have security escort you from the premises when you arrive on Saturday, or would you prefer to find that the doors are simply locked? The meltdown was spectacular. You can't do this. We have a contract. We paid a deposit. You have a contract with a business I own. I can absolutely do this, and your deposit will be kept as compensation for the inconvenience of dealing with someone who judges people by their appearances. Carlos's voice was strained. Josephine, please. This is our wedding reception. All our friends are invited. Isabella's family is flying in from Boston. My law firm partners, everyone we know. Carlos, 4 hours ago, your fiancé told me I was too poor to attend your wedding reception at my own country club. Now you want my help to make sure it happens. We didn't know it was your country club. You also didn't know anything else about my life, my career, or my achievements. You made assumptions based on stereotypes and surface appearances. I could hear Isabella crying in the background now, the reality of the situation finally sinking in. What do you want? Carlos asked quietly. I want you to understand that success comes in many different forms. And just because someone doesn't flaunt their wealth doesn't mean they don't have it. We understand that now. Please, can't we work this out? Because this isn't just about the money, Carlos. This is about the fact that for 9 years, your family has treated me like an underachiever while I was building one of the most successful hospitality companies in the South. We didn't know. Because you never asked. You made judgments and stuck with them, never bothering to look deeper. My other line was ringing. Probably another property manager calling about one of the evening events at our other venues. Carlos, I have to go. I have a business to run. Multiple businesses, actually. Wait, Josephine, please. Can we work this out? Can we start over? I looked out at the city skyline, where the lights of 4 of my hotels were beginning to twinkle in the early evening. In a few hours, thousands of guests would be enjoying world-class service at Rodriguez Hospitality Properties, never knowing they were staying at facilities owned by the woman Isabella Whitmore thought was too poor for a wedding reception. You can start over with yourselves, I said. But your wedding reception is cancelled. Find another venue. But where? Everything nice is booked months in advance. That's not my problem anymore. You wanted an event without me there. So now you have one no event at all. I hung up, but Isabella wasn't finished with me yet. 20 minutes later, Isabella called directly. Josephine, please. I made a terrible mistake. I'm so sorry for what I said. I had no idea you were successful. Isabella, you're not sorry for what you said. You're sorry that what you said had consequences. That's not true. I genuinely apologize. I was wrong about everything. Were you wrong, or were you just uninformed about my net worth? She was quiet. Isabella, if I were actually the poor non-profit worker you thought I was, would my exclusion from your reception have been acceptable? I don't know. You do know. You thought it was perfectly fine to exclude someone based on their perceived economic status. The only thing that's changed is that you discovered I have money. Please, Josephine. Our families are already here. My parents flew in from Boston. Carlos's law partners are expecting to attend. This will be humiliating. More humiliating than being uninvited for my own brother's wedding reception because I'm supposedly too poor to be seen there? We'll make it up to you. We'll include you in everything from now on, whatever you want. I almost laughed. Isabella, you're planning to include me now that I'm rich enough to deserve an invitation. That's not what I meant. That's exactly what you meant. And here's the thing, I don't need your approval or inclusion. I have a successful business, meaningful work, and relationships with people who value me for who I am, not what I'm worth. But you're Carlos's sister. Yes, I am. And Carlos just learned that his sister built a hospitality empire while he thought she was an unemployed charity volunteer. My phone beeped with another call, Patricia from my office. I have to go, Isabella. But let me leave you with some advice. Next time you meet someone who doesn't fit your preconceptions about success, try asking questions instead of making judgments. Josephine, wait. I clicked over to Patricia's call. Ms. Rodriguez, I have the mayor's office on the line. They want to discuss your proposal for the Veterans Housing Project downtown. Put them through, and Patricia? Clear my Saturday evening. I'm going to be working. The scrambling had only just begun. That Saturday night, while Carlos and Isabella scrambled to find an alternative venue for their wedding reception, they ended up at a chain restaurant in Mesquite. I was in my office finalizing the purchase of a historic resort in Asheville, North Carolina, $89 million acquisition that would become Rodriguez Hospitality's flagship Blue Ridge Mountains property. At 9:30 p.m., my phone rang. Carlos again. Josephine, I wanted to call and apologize. Really apologize. For what specifically? For letting Isabella treat you that way. For not defending you when she made those comments about your financial situation. For 9 years of making assumptions about your life instead of asking about your actual achievements. I set down the acquisition contract I was reviewing. And for being a terrible brother. You've built something incredible, and instead of celebrating your success, I let my fiancé humiliate you because we thought you didn't have enough money to deserve our respect. Where are you calling from? Chuck E. Cheese in Richardson. It's the only place we could find that had availability tonight. I couldn't help but smile at the mental image of Isabella Whitmore in her designer dress trying to celebrate her wedding reception surrounded by screaming children and animatronic characters. How's the reception going? Terrible. Absolutely terrible. Isabella's parents are mortified. My law partners made polite excuses and left after 30 minutes. The champagne is sparkling apple cider and the 7-course dinner is pizza and breadsticks. I'm sorry to hear that. No, you're not. And you shouldn't be. We deserve this. He was right. I wasn't sorry. Isabella had wanted a reception that excluded people she deemed unworthy. And now she was having exactly that, a celebration that reflected her values and judgment. Carlos, can I ask you something? Anything. Do you actually want to marry someone who judges people by their bank account balance? Long silence. I don't know, he said finally. A week ago, I thought Isabella was sophisticated and refined. Now I realize she's just shallow and mean-spirited. That's something you'll have to figure out for yourself. Will you help me understand what you've built? I want to learn about your business, your success, who you really are instead of who I assumed you were. The real conversation was about to begin. I looked around my office at the architectural plans for 5 new resorts, the acquisition documents for 3 luxury hotel chains we were purchasing, the industry awards recognizing Rodriguez Hospitality as one of the fastest-growing companies in the sector. I'd like that, Carlos. But not because I need your approval or validation. Because you're my brother, and I'd like you to actually know me. I'd like to know you too. The real you, not the imaginary struggling sister I created in my head. Good. But Carlos. Yeah. If you marry Isabella, she needs to understand that respect isn't conditional on net worth. I won't tolerate being treated differently now that she knows I have money. I understand. And Josephine. Yes. Thank you. For what? For teaching us that assumptions about success can blind you to the actual achievements happening right in front of you. After we hung up, I walked out to my office balcony and looked down at the city where I'd built my empire. In the distance, I could see the lights of Magnolia Grande Country Club, the venue where Isabella had planned to celebrate her wedding while deliberately excluding the woman who owned the place. The wedding reception that should have been happening right now in elegant surroundings with champagne and live music was instead taking place in a children's restaurant with plastic cups and arcade games. It was perfect poetic justice. But more importantly, it had forced my brother to confront his own assumptions and see his sister for who she really was instead of who he thought she should be. 4 weeks later, Carlos called me with news. I broke up with Isabella. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, and I genuinely was. Ending an engagement is always painful, regardless of the circumstances. No, you're not. And neither am I, honestly. The past few weeks showed me who she really is, someone who measures people's worth by their bank account balance and treats service workers like they're invisible. What was the final straw? She started trying to become your best friend. Calling you constantly, asking about business opportunities, wanting to be invited to your hotels and resorts. It was disgusting. The same person who said you were too poor for our wedding reception suddenly wanted to be your business partner. I'd fielded several of those calls and declined politely each time. Isabella's sudden interest in friendship had been transparent and opportunistic. I'm proud of you for recognizing that. I should have recognized it years ago. I should have seen how she treated people she thought were beneath her. Servers, hotel staff, anyone she perceived as having less money or status. Live and learn. Josephine, can I ask you something? Sure. Are you dating anyone? Are you happy? Do you have the kind of life you want? I smiled. It was the first time in years that someone in my family had asked about my personal happiness rather than making assumptions about my life. I'm very happy, Carlos. I love my work. I have great friends, and yes, I'm seeing someone wonderful, another entrepreneur who builds sustainable housing developments. That's great. I'm glad you found someone who appreciates what you do. His name is Alexander, and he knew about my business success before he knew my last name. It's refreshing to be with someone who sees my achievements as exciting rather than intimidating. Will you introduce me to him sometime? I'd like to meet the man who makes my incredibly successful sister happy. I'd love that. 8 months later, Carlos and I met for dinner at the restaurant in my Asheville resort, the historic property I'd been purchasing the night of his disastrous wedding reception. He brought his new girlfriend, Rebecca, a public school principal who knew exactly who I was because she'd read about my education philanthropy work. As we sat on the terrace overlooking the Blue Ridge Mountains, sharing a bottle of wine from the resort's private vineyard, Carlos raised his glass. To Josephine, he said, who taught me that success isn't always visible from the outside, and that judging people by appearances says more about the judge than the judged. And to family, I added, who can learn to see each other for who we really are instead of who we assumed each other to be. Speaking of which, Rebecca said, I have to tell you, my students are huge fans of your literacy program. The computer labs you've built in underserved schools have been incredible for our community. Carlos looked surprised. Josephine has a literacy program? The Rodriguez Foundation has built 62 computer labs and libraries in low-income schools across the Southwest, I explained. We also provide teacher training and STEM education programs. I had no idea. There's a lot you didn't know about my work, Carlos. The business success is just one part of it. Will you tell me about the foundation? I'd love to. Understand the full scope of what you've built. As the sun set over the Blue Ridge Mountains, I found myself sharing stories about the schools I'd helped, the teachers I'd supported, and the thousands of children who now had access to technology and educational resources because of the wealth I'd generated through Rodriguez Hospitality Enterprises. It was the first time in years that I'd talked about my achievements with a family member who was genuinely interested in understanding rather than judging. The woman Isabella thought was too poor for a wedding reception had used her wealth to create opportunities for others, funding education programs, building affordable housing, supporting environmental initiatives, and creating thousands of jobs through ethical business practices. But the most valuable thing I'd built wasn't measured in dollars. It was the self-respect that came from staying true to my values regardless of other people's assumptions, and the satisfaction of proving that success and humility weren't mutually exclusive. Sometimes the best revenge really is living well. But sometimes, if you're very fortunate, living well becomes the foundation for healing relationships and helping others understand that worth isn't determined by wealth, but by character, contribution, and the courage to build something meaningful in the world. As I fell asleep that night in my Blue Ridge resort, surrounded by the success I'd built while others thought I was failing, I realized that Isabella's cruel dismissal had given me an unexpected gift. The opportunity to show my family who I really was, and to build a relationship with my brother based on truth instead of assumptions. The wedding reception she'd ruined had become the beginning of something much better, a family connection built on genuine respect and understanding rather than judgments about bank account balances.